Grey dawn settled over Manchester's cobbled streets as the city stirred awake. The Irwell River lay still beneath a veil of mist, trams rumbling to life somewhere beyond the fog. Among the rain-slicked roads of Salford, a red double-decker bus cut through the drizzle, its wipers keeping a weary rhythm. Behind the wheel sat Tom Hargreaves, mid-50s, a man whose eyes had seen too many goodbyes. His gaze drifted often to the rearview mirror, not to watch his passengers, but to glance at ghosts. For 25 years, Tom had been the quiet pulse of Manchester's mornings. From the factory workers piling on at Ancoats to the schoolchildren in Moss Side, he carried the city's stories, their laughter and frustrations, their ordinary hopes. He knew every route by heart, the shortcut past the old mills, the steep hill that always tested his brakes on wet days. But his own story was one he kept buried deep, like the old thermos of tea tucked beside his seat. It was a Tuesday in spring when the world shifted. His son, Liam, a bright-eyed boy of 10 whose laughter could chase clouds from the Pennines, had been fighting an invisible enemy. The doctors called it Sanfilippo syndrome, a cruel, rare illness that quietly stole memories before they could even form. Liam's drawings, once proudly taped to the fridge, gave way to confusion, then silence. Tom and his wife, Sarah, kept vigil in the sterile hum of hospital rooms, their hearts breaking to the sound of monitors and whispered prayers. When Liam passed away, the world dimmed. The funeral was small, under a bruised purple sky. Tom stood at the graveside in his best coat, the one he saved for Christmas, feeling the earth give way beneath him. Sarah wept into his arms, her grief echoing off the chapel walls. Afterwards, the house fell silent. Meals went untouched. The radio gathered dust. Tom returned to work, but even his bus felt foreign. The familiar chatter of passengers blurred into meaningless noise. Grief, he realized, wasn't a wave that crashed and faded. It was a tide that kept pulling him under. One evening, unable to sit in the stillness any longer, Tom laced up Liam's old trainers too small. But all he had left and stepped out into the drizzle. He had no plan, no destination, just the ache in his chest and the burn in his lungs. He ran past chip shops glowing like beacons, past allotments where pensioners tended roses in defiance of the cold. A mile became 2. His tears mixed with rain, his breath grew ragged. But for the first time since the burial, the knot inside him loosened just a little. That run became a ritual. Early mornings before his shift, midnight jogs when sleep wouldn't come. His colleagues noticed the change, the lighter step, the quiet hum of an old Oasis tune under his breath. "What's got into you, Tom?" his mate Reggie asked one morning. Tom only smiled. "Just clearing the cobwebs, Reg." But deep down, running was no longer escape. It was a conversation with himself and with Liam. Every stride whispered, "I'm still here, lad, for you." As the months passed, his routes grew longer. On a whim, he signed up for a local 5K charity run. He crossed the finish line exhausted, medal clutched in shaking hands. The crowd cheered. Sarah watched from the sidelines, smiling for the first time in months. That night, over dinner, she took his hand. "He's proud of you, Tom," she said softly. "I know it. But healing is never a straight road." That winter was brutal ice on the canals, wind screaming through the viaducts. One training run in the Peak District nearly broke him. Lost in the fog, his mind replaying Liam's final moments, Tom collapsed beside a dry stone wall. His grief tore through him like a storm. "Why him?" he cried. "Why us?" When he finally stumbled home, he threw the trainers into the corner and swore he'd never run again. Sarah found him there on the kitchen floor and held him as he wept. "You don't have to run from it," she whispered. "Run with it." The next morning brought a phone call from Reggie. Without asking, he'd signed Tom up for the Manchester Marathon. "For Liam," he said. Tom stared at the confirmation email, heart racing. Why not? He decided to run for the charity researching Sanfilippo syndrome, the same one that had fought for his son. It was a spark of purpose in the ashes of loss. He trained quietly, long before dawn, while the city still slept. His knees screamed, blisters tore open, but every mile carried memories. Liam kicking a football in the garden, giggling through bedtime stories. The running no longer hurt, it healed. He created a fundraising page called Laps for Liam. Donations trickled in at first, a few pounds from passengers, a tenner from the depot lads. But soon Manchester rallied behind him. Local papers picked up the story. Strangers began to give. The total climbed past £5,000, enough to fund a small research grant. For the first time since Liam's death, Tom felt that his steps were building something, not just chasing ghosts. When Marathon Day arrived, the city came alive. The streets were lined with thousands of people cheering, waving banners, shouting his name. Tom's heart pounded as the starting horn sounded. He ran past familiar streets, each one holding memories of his son. At mile 20, exhaustion hit. His legs trembled, his chest burned, and then, in the crowd, he saw a boy holding a sign, "Run like Liam's watching." The words cut through the pain. Tom smiled through tears and pushed on. He crossed the finish line after nearly 5 hours, collapsing into Sarah's arms as the crowd erupted. It wasn't victory, it was resurrection. The donations soared to £20,000, and one marathon became 2, then 3. London, Edinburgh, Belfast. Each race another chapter in his healing. Each finish line another message to the world. Love endures. 5 years later, Tom has raised over £127,000 for children's health research. His story has inspired thousands. He still drives the same route through Manchester, still greets his regulars with a smile. But now, when he looks in the rearview mirror, he doesn't see ghosts. He sees purpose. At home, laughter fills the rooms again. Sarah's voice, his grandchildren's giggles, and the memory of Liam still present, still shining. The boy's old bedroom is now a small hub for hope. Walls lined with photos of runners, medals glinting in the light. The ache never fully leaves, but Tom has learned to live beside it, to turn pain into motion, sorrow into strength. Tom's story isn't just about miles or money raised. It's about the simple, relentless act of moving forward. In Manchester, where the rain never quite stops and the people never quite give up, he discovered that healing doesn't come from standing still. It comes from the doing, the courage to take one more step, even when your heart feels too heavy to lift. You don't outrun grief. You carry it with you, and somewhere along the road, it becomes the reason you keep going. And for the quiet heroes of every street and every bus route, Tom's story whispers the same truth. Your ordinary steps can echo extraordinary. Run on, because in Manchester's unbreakable spirit, we all find our way home. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone who keeps going no matter the weight they carry, don't let it fade here. Share this story. Leave a comment with your own. And if you believe in finding light through loss, subscribe to this channel, where real people, real pain, and real courage remind us what being human truly means. Because sometimes, the smallest stories carry the greatest strength.